Welcome back to DCSmokeFree Reacts. I'm Mitchell, Tobacco Prevention Education Program Coordinator. And today, we are reacting to vaping videos about educational content.
Parents are all the same when it comes to vaping.
Bye, Mom. Bye, honey.
None of them think their kid is doing it.
Not my
Kids are
kid.
young.
Maybe some of their kids' friends. Maybe some on the soccer team. Definitely that kid with the purple hair. Maybe even some of the cheerleaders. But their kid? Never. If that's what you think, all right.
So it came out in 2020, kind of at the height of when vaping was a real big concern, right around COVID, really right around COVID. And then COVID kind of kicked in and we started forgetting about this whole vaping epidemic because guess what? Still exists. It's never your kid. It's never your student who are using these products. But the reality is a lot of students using these products. So you'll never believe that it's your kid, but it's got to be somebody's kid because we know that more than 1 in 4 high school students, still the correct stat today, are using these products. And actually in Douglas County, it's likely much higher than that. When we did a local survey, we found that it was more than half of high school students had at least tried a tobacco product. And even today, what we're seeing is less vaping and more of this Zen pouch use. So these nicotine pouches, they come in many different brands and different flavors, but they are out there and we are concerned that more and more students are using these nicotine products. I think a lot of parents have this visual script or this idea of who are the kids who vape, or maybe when they were in school, they knew these are the kids who smoke cigarettes and they would do it behind the bleachers, or they were, this stereotype of kid would be the one who does it. But the reality is that anyone can be the one who tries these tobacco products. Anyone can be the student who vapes or uses nicotine pouches. And so it's never too late or even too early to have these conversations. Talk to your students, talk to your kids about what they're likely going to see going into middle school. The earlier you have those conversations, this is what I expect. It's more likely than not that one of your friends or peers is going to offer you a tobacco product. You're going to see it, you're going to hear about it, you're probably going to smell it, you're going to be around it because it's just that prevalent. So here are some tools to deal with those situations when you're in them. And as a parent, it's your job to inform your kids about what is expected of them, how they can deal with these problems, prepare them for what's to come, right? It's simple. Maybe it's a 5 or 10-minute conversation that you have with your student. Maybe you start in the 3rd grade, and then the 4th grade, and then the 5th grade, and the 6th grade. Once a year, have a 5 to 10-minute conversation with them. Expand on what you know. If you're unsure, check out DCSmokeFree.com. We have lots of good, helpful information, including a PDF brochure you can print off. Check it out. DC Smoke Free. It's linked in the comments. It's linked below.
They're often marketed as safe alternatives to smoking, but their cool designs, fun flavors, and the fact that they're easy to hide means it's not only smokers who want them, it's kids. And for kids, they're definitely not safe. Teens should absolutely not use Juuls, e-cigarettes, or any similar products. They're getting a big dose of nicotine. This disrupts their brain development.
Yep.
It changes the connections between brain cells, causing problems with learning, mood, and impulse control.
Yeah, so we see the prefrontal cortex is this top part of your brain here. And that's really responsible for learning, mood, impulse control, all those executive functions. And so, yeah, we're certainly worried how nicotine affects youth and adolescents, especially in their developmental phase. Mood regulation and impulse control. I mean, those are great things, those great skills that we learn at a young age. Our brain forms to improve those skills and improve those functionalities. Why would you, dump yourself full of a chemical that makes those things harder? So we see this interesting dose-dependent relationship with anxiety. And so what happens is you use nicotine and it gives you this sort of small high where your anxiety may temporarily feel better, you feel less stressed, and you feel good. And then as that dose wears off, which is usually after about 20 minutes or so, you then decrease. It then decreases to where you're like, I'm like anxious and I have to smoke again because I got to get back to that baseline. So then you had another hit of nicotine and you go back up. It doesn't ever make if you have baseline anxiety, baseline depression, smoking doesn't make those things any better. nicotine does not help with anxiety or depression. It only serves to make those things worse in the long term.
Any smoker can tell you nicotine is highly addictive. That makes it very difficult to quit e-cigarettes. And vaping makes it much more likely that kids will smoke real cigarettes later.
Yeah, so nicotine really is one of the most addictive substances in the world. I run quit classes with adults and some youth all over Douglas County. And I've worked with adults who have used fentanyl. I've worked with adults who've used methamphetamines and harder drugs. And I will tell you, we've been able to help those adults quit all those hard drugs. But the one drug we were never really very successful at helping them quit was nicotine. So tobacco, cigarettes, nicotine pouches like Zyn, On, Velo. These are very addictive products. Very, very, very addictive products. Very hard to quit. Much rather you didn't start than try to help you quit because we're not very effective at helping people stop.
It's true that a few e-cigarette brands don't contain nicotine, but most of them do. And all of them contain other dangerous chemicals like these. Formaldehyde, which is found in glue and embalming fluid. Diacetyl, which causes lung disease. Benzene, that's a carcinogen linked to leukemia. Some tests have also found metal particles in the e-cigarette vapor. The devices themselves can also be unsafe. They can explode.
A lot of these devices come from China, typically using the cheapest materials and parts possible. And you can have lots of different chemicals in them. You never know what you're going to get. And in fact, they do sell these nicotine-free ones where they're supposed to be just, vape clouds and no nicotine in them. But also when we run these through tests, we often see trace amounts or even low levels amounts of nicotine. So even nicotine-free does not mean that it has no nicotine. It's really hard to judge what you're going to get. None of these things are FDA approved. None of these have active ingredient lists where you can look through and say actually what's in there. You don't know what you're really getting. Yeah, I love it. It was a great video, short, sweet, simple, certainly targeted. Looks like kind of towards parents, especially with that call to action at the end saying, hey, talk to your kids about this. There's a lot of parents who use these products. I think a lot of them are unsure about the risks. If you have questions, put them in the comments. I'm happy to answer questions. We do it all the time.
Was a healthy high school student who loved to sail, swim, and run. Then he started vaping. His doctors say his lungs were destroyed beyond repair. This morning, 17-year-old Daniel Ament is recovering from a double lung transplant, believed to be the first related to vaping.
About how often were you vaping?
Maybe a few times during the day, but like at lunchtime if I was with people, but it would only be like hitting it once.
Do you buy the vaping pens?
I never bought one. It started off just whenever I'd be with my friends on the weekends, I would just hit theirs.
He began vaping in December of 2018 using mainly flavored cartridges and occasional THC pods. And in early September, he started feeling ill.
I had a really bad headache. That was my main thing. And I just felt really sick.
His mom, Tammy, had an idea the illness was vaping related.
On the way to the hospital, I said, are we still going with the fact that you've never vaped or you don't vape? And he said, maybe.
Daniel didn't come clean until he was admitted to the hospital.
It's really frustrating, and I know that the kids, I think they cover for each other.
Once in the hospital, he rapidly declined and was put on life support for 29 days.
When they're telling you what happened and that you were days from dying.
Yeah, that still hasn't really processed yet. It's really hard to believe that happened, but everyone's told me that one day they just said he has a 10% chance to live.
On October 15th, after doctors told his family death was imminent, Daniel was given a double lung transplant.
Yeah, this is really sad. This is really heartbreaking when these products cause this amount of damage to our bodies. This was a big thing. We haven't had a whole lot of this happen recently, but we think it was related to something called vitamin E acetate, which is typically safe to ingest, but not safe to put into your lungs. One thing I like that they point out in this video is that vaping isn't always just nicotine. Oftentimes it has THC in it or marijuana. Oftentimes students who are new to vaping or to these products might not really understand the difference. It may be obvious if you're an adult and you've seen the difference between what they two look like, but you can imagine if you've never seen these things before and now you're pressured into trying them at 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, even 9th or 10th grade. You don't know what the effects are. You don't know what to expect.
When the doctors told you that this was because of vaping, you were skeptical.
Yeah, I didn't really believe it at first. It just didn't make sense because why didn't it happen to other people that had been vaping for years? Why didn't it happen to someone else close to me that I was hitting their stuff? So how did the chemicals affect me and not them?
This is your new normal.
He says while he is grateful to be alive,
Lung transplants are tough because you have to have all of this medication, anti-rejection medication. I mean, this is a whole lifelong change for him. This isn't something that's just going to affect him once. It's going to affect him in his entire life.
Like I have to take over 20 medications a day. I have to wear a mask in public for at least a year. I can't travel for a year. Opportunities that I would have had before, like going in the military, I can't do that anymore.
You feel like you've been given a second chance?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to make the most out of that and make sure no one else makes the same mistakes I did.
Yeah, what a heartfelt video. I mean, not an easy situation at all. I think a lot of, just like the last video, it's not your kid, it's not your student. So you never know what students are using or what your student is using. Oftentimes students lie about using them or trying them. Not a good idea to ever start this stuff because it oftentimes leads into lifelong addiction. In fact, I just saw the other day that these nicotine pouches, they looked at the Zyn pouches, and they found that 70% of students who tried a nicotine pouch, who started using nicotine pouches, continued to use nicotine pouches. So 70% of people who tried a nicotine pouch continued to use them. I mean, that's significant. That speaks volumes to this addictiveness. I just want to say a big thank you to all the folks who have made videos, to the student who reached out and shared his story with the news and sounds like he's doing amazing things with his nonprofit. I'd love to see where that is at now. And also just all the great content people are making. I appreciate all the support. We've had a lot of great comments over our years of making this content and React video content, and it's just gonna get better. Give us your best comments down in there. Check out DCSmokeFree.com, and we'll see you in the next video.